I believe this is being recorded. All right. So last week, what we have covered, we have covered simple demo of ICE. So I'm just going to repeat the same, and then we can start the fresh one. So last week we talked about what is Cisco ICE, and we discussed about the course content. And after the course content, we have shown you this picture. So in this picture, you can see that uh, basically when you use ICE, so there would be four terminology: supplicant, authenticator, authentication server, and identity sources. So end entity device are the supplicant. Your switches or wireless LAN controller are the authenticator, and ICE is working as a authentication server, which use LDAP services to reach to the identity sources. So your Microsoft Active Directory or Microsoft PKI EDCS server would be working as a identity sources. So whenever user want to connect to the network, before connecting to network, he has to prove himself that he is the right user. Okay, and for that he has to prove his authentication or identity. So user put the username and password. That would go to switch. Switch would be checking the authentication mechanism. Based on that, it is forwarding to ICE, and ICE is further looking to that user into their identity sources. If user is present, user would get a token and he would be authenticated to the network and he can access the network resources. If authentication is getting failed, user won't be able to connect to the network. So that's what we have discussed in the basic introduction. And we also talk about the key function of the ICE, which uses AAA authentication, posture checking, profiler, etc. Today we are going to see all this stuff in details. And this was the lab topology we have shown you. Okay. However, we can modify the lab. Moving to next topic, which is belongs to today. So we are going to understand some use cases of ICE. So let me just bring that slide. Yeah. So in this one, we are going to discuss what all the use cases of ICE and what is ICE basically. So if I talk about Cisco ICE, so you can see that this is a single box which can act a different system. So it can act a network access profiler. It can work as a guest server. It can work as a network access control manager, and it can work as a network access server, or it can work as an access control system. So this is a single device which is providing all these device functionality. So earlier there was different boxes for different stuff. Now your single box can provide all these services. So we will discuss these services in detail. Let's move to next slide. So in this slide, we are going to understand what are the use cases of Cisco ISE. Okay. So if I talk about in any organization, why Cisco ISE is being used. Okay. So there could be three purposes for which Cisco ISE could be used. The number one purpose is the visibility. The number two purpose is compliance. And number three purpose is control. Only for fulfilling these three purposes, we use Cisco ISE, right? So we will talk about what is the visibility and how it works. Okay. But for now, just understand that ISE could provide, ISE could fulfill these three purposes only. And out of these three purposes, you can see here all the use cases for which ISE can be used. So we have guest And secure Wi-Fi access use case, we have secure access use cases, we have asset visibility use cases. I mean, there are different use cases. But if you see that the purpose which ICE is solving, only it is solving three purpose. So we are going to understand what all these purpose means. So let's start from visibility. So can you guess, we have these use cases, and which use cases can we use for the visibility out of these?
User activities, I think the visibility is for that.
Yeah, so let's understand. Correct. You are around that. So visibility, basically you can see that asset visibility, this feature is fulfilling the visibility part. I mean, if I talk about the asset visibility, so this is the one of the use case that can be where ICE can be used. So I would let you know that what is the use case I have. So let's say we have a user which is connecting to the network. So these are the user who is connecting to the network. Let's say I have a switches, and we have a different type of user is being connecting to my network. So some user is connecting in this way to my network directly. They are at home and they are connecting to the net. I mean, they are in office and they are connecting to the network directly, plugging their laptop, desktop, and further we have a firewall, we have an internet router, and they access the internet via that. Maybe we have this kind of scenario. The second scenario which we have, it is like that the user is connecting. Let's say we have one VPN firewall over here. This is a VPN firewall or VPN devices. And further, it is providing one leg of VPN firewall is connected to the internal switch. From here, we have some server as well. These are, let's say, internal server. So let's say these user went home and now they just want to access this internal server. So they connect themselves via VPN. Here user is connecting himself using VPN. And through VPN, user is accessing all the internal resources. So what you just want, you want to, you want some kind of data, okay, where you would be able to see that what all type of user is connecting and from where they are connecting. How many you have endpoints, how many you have a server, all those stuffs you want. So you just want total network visibility. If I talk about total network visibility, you just want to know that how many endpoint you have. Out of those endpoint, do you have Mac? How many Mac user? How many Windows user? If they are Mac user, how many they are on, which operating system? So I would take example of Windows over here. So let's say how many you are using Windows 10, how many using Windows 11. All these one. You just want that on endpoint, do you have printer, which is connected to network? Do you have servers, which are connected to network? So all those stuffs you want, entire network visibility you just want. So you can see over here, in the asset visibility dashboard, you can see how many endpoints are connected and how they are connected. Whether they are connected using wired network or wireless, And let's say some user is connecting through the VPN. So you would have that kind of visibility. Okay. So using this asset visibility feature or use case, you can see that how many endpoints are connected, how they are connected, and you can also identify their type, whether they are printer, they are computer, they are mobile devices, scanner, they are IoT sensor, and whatnot. So basically, this asset visibility somewhere is fulfilling your visibility requirement. If you just want entire network visibility, so you can use this use case asset visibility in ISE, and this feature is going to provide you the entire network visibility. How this is able to do that? So in ISE, we have one feature set called profiling. So using the profiling, basically ISE would be able to collect different type of information of connecting assets or connecting node, and based on that it would be able to provide the information. So this profiling is one of the important thing. Other is what we have a compliance feature. The next feature we have, or we can say use case, we have a compliance. So ISE also can be used for the compliance. What is the meaning of compliance? So compliance meaning is you can monitor the installed application on desktop or mobile devices and enforce the requirement before connecting to the network. Means, I would take a simple example. Let's say we have wireless over here. Let's say this is my wireless, and here one of the user who just want to connect to this wireless. This is having SSID, something like NetMin Corp. This is the SSID, and further this wireless is connected to the switch, and with this switch you have some internal network segment where you have a servers, okay, where you have a printer, etc. So this use let's say this user want, and further it is connected to the internet as well. This is a firewall, this is a router, and further this is connected to internet. Now let's say you have a company user who has a company laptop, and he just want to access internet, and he just want to access your internal resources also. So what would happening basically? This user, let's say this user knows what is the username and password for this NetMin corporation, and post putting the username password, let's say this user got connected over here. Now, this is the simple thing where user knows the password of your Wi-Fi or SSID, and based on that it is able to connect it to the network, and once it is connected to the network it can access the internet, it can access the internal resources. So that is a simple thing, but I just want to place the compliance. What I just want some certain level checks before this user would be connecting to the network. So I just want to place some compliance checks over here, right? So let's say this is the user, this is user want to connect to my network. So while connecting to my network, before authenticating on ISE, okay, or before providing the authentication, we just want to ensure that users firewall should be on antivirus should be updated. Okay. Or, a kind of
Window updates, sir.
Windows should be updated, right? Or a specific Windows version we can check. Windows version as well. For example, it's um, Windows 11. We can check. So we can only allow Windows 11 and Windows 10 devices, 10 and 11 devices over the network. If he's coming using Windows 7 or any Linux-based operating system, no, we won't allow him to connect. So all these steps we can enforce in the compliance. So what it does basically, it uses deeper visibility and control for desktop and mobile devices application. And here it can monitor the install application and the services on the desktop and mobile devices, and then enforce the requirement before connecting to the network. What feature it is using? It is using posture feature set to validate all these compliance. So basically, on the posture, you can create a policy, posture policy you can create, where you can define that what Windows version should be allowed, what antivirus should be allowed. For example, you have multiple antivirus vendor, right? So you just want that only trusted antivirus should be allowed. As an example, let's say you have McAfee, right? McAfee, you have a Symantec. Only specific vendor antivirus you can allow. He cannot use any other vendor antivirus. Okay, whatever the trusted antivirus for your corporation, you can allow those only. Even though, let's say firewall policy is on, right? And he just want to kill the firewall after connecting. So you can also enforce that kind of stuff. So that
Sir,
is,
I have one question.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little bit confused. The ISE, this is a network product, yeah. So mostly the working area of the ISE is related with the end user. So end user is mostly controlled by the system administration team, yeah. So
Yeah.
system administration teams have their own, tools like as you mentioned, semantic manager. So they have all these features such as visibility, compliance, and these things they have built in their software. So I'm a little bit confused that this will be used by the system administration team or by the network administration team.
This particular feature, you can, I mean,
No,
anybody can use.
this specific hardware, the ISE.
The ICE hardware is usually managed by the network security team.
Okay, network security.
Yeah, network security team.
Okay,
Or sometimes I also have seen that it is managed by the network team also. So in
okay,
the network itself, I mean, something called managed network services in some organization. Sorry. Manage network services. This is one of the umbrella. Under this umbrella, you would find two teams. One is a network, another is a security team. So network team, what they manage, like ACI, router and switches, and DNS. I'm talking about public DNS. Public DNS is usually managed by them. And what else? yeah, a kind of SD-WAN, these kind of stuff. And there are more things that would be managed by the network. A security team is managing firewall devices, ISE. ISE can be managed by the network team also. So this is a common kind of VPN. And what else? ASM. Here it is also about managing load balancer. Instead of ASM, I would say web application firewall, and etc. So these kind of stuff is managed by security team. This kind of stuff is managed by network team. Usually
Okay.
they would work as a collaborated.
Okay. ISE comes under data center, yeah?
Yeah, it comes under the data center, and network team usually manage that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. In in routing and switches, they manage different type of switches as well. So you would have a kind of nexus switches, catalog switches. All those switches would be managed by the network team.
Okay.
Yeah. So usually Cisco ISE is managed by the network team or network security team. Okay. And you have asked a very good question that even though there is a different type of antivirus checks, right?
Yes.
But why we should use ISE only to do these things? See, ISE is checking centrally everything. ISE is used for centrally checked. I would let you know one example. So let's say this is the user who just want to connect to the network. This is the user who just want to connect to the network. So let's say right now this user is in office, and in office he is connecting using Wi-Fi. So he is connecting using I would say using local LAN, and he's trying to connect to the network like that. On the network, it want to access all the internal resources. So when he is in office, right? At that time, who is going to check the compliance? Do you have any option on your wireless LAN controller that can use all those security checks?
No.
On the wireless LAN controller, you don't have all these stuff. So
Mhm.
at that time, what we use ISE over here. So we would have ISE, Cisco ISE. So when this user is putting the username and password, this wireless LAN controller would send that credential for authentication on ISE, right? And ISE is going to check whether the user which is connecting here, whether this user has all the compliance things or not. So here you can use ISE. Now let's say the same user, right now he was in office, but now he is at home and he just want to connect to the network. So he is over the internet and he just want to connect using a VPN devices, VPN firewall, I would say. VPN firewall is further connected to switch. Okay. I'm just creating a rough diagram. And then it is connecting to the internet. And this user is connecting to the internet. And post connecting to the internet, he is providing all the VPN credential and then he is trying to connect. So, on your VPN firewall itself, because mostly when you are connecting the VPN, that is a agent-based VPN connection. So what is agent-based? The small software would install on user machine where user is providing username and password, putting the sign in. It would be connecting to the respective VPN domain, and then this device has a capability to check the user compliance before connecting to the network. So if you are using a VPN firewall, you can check the compliance over here. But let's say user is directly connecting, at that time whether compliance can be checked? No. So on that cases we have ISE. So what organization does basically, we can disable the compliance check or we can enable additional compliance check over here. But whenever his user is connecting to the network, before connecting to the network, ISE would be asking all those information, whether user is coming through the VPN, wireless or wired network. It is checking all the required compliance, whatever the compliance you would set on the ISE.
If user doesn't meet with the compliance policy, so further what action will be taken? It's going to be blocked from the network, or they will install, the compliance parameters that we have set on the
So,
ISE.
so there are different things. You can do the segmentation as well. So if user doesn't meet the compliance, you can put the user in a different VLAN where he would have a limited access, not a full access. And if user meet the compliance, you can put user dynamically to one of the security group or one of the VLAN where he would have a required access.
Okay. Can we do it like this, that if user doesn't meet the compliance, so first the ISE should, inform the specific user in order to install the antivirus or update the operating system. Then he will be able to access the specific required stuff that he requested. So can
Yeah.
we push this something like this? One is doing a quarantine type, you said, that creating a segment, so he will have limited access. But this thing is that the one that I mentioned is like informing the user, so that you should have these things first, then you will be able to access the network.
Yeah, you can inform in that way to the user that you have a limited access as of now. You can prompt the banner like that on user
Okay,
machines. Yeah.
okay.
So we have seen two things: asset visibility and we have seen compliance. Asset visibility we can achieve using profiling, and compliance we can achieve using a posture. The third option, we have a secure access. So what is the meaning of secure access here? So if user is intentionally connecting to the network, so user would be putting his authentication credential. So we need to make sure that user credential which is going to travel in between user machine to the ISE or to the network devices, that should travel secure. So basically here in a secure access, ISE can be used as a AAA server which can provide authentication, authorization, and accounting. Okay. So that whenever a user is connecting, you should be able to know who is connecting, what level of access he is getting, okay, and what he has accessed so far. Okay. So authentication here you can enforce, authorization you can enforce, and accounting you can enforce. So that is used for the secure access. Now, so this is the third use case. The fourth use case, you can use the ISE for the asset enforcement. So here you can say, this is the asset enforcement. Now, I would let you know that what is meaning of asset enforcement. So can you guess who can connect to your network? Who all can connect to your network? You have a laptop which can connect to your network, right? You would have a server which can connect to your network. You have a mobile devices which can connect to your network. So all these devices so far you have seen, they are supporting interactive login. What is the meaning of interactive login? There you can provide username and you can provide password. These things you can provide in the interactive login. So you would have some devices which won't be supporting these kind of interactive logging. Okay. You would have some of the devices which want to connect network, but they don't have a feature to provide the username and password on those devices. You can take simple example as a printer. Let's say on printer you have some network printer and just that is a dummy devices, right? You have a printer, there you cannot put the username and password. Now how the printer is going to authenticate? Okay, so here you can enforce access based on the asset visibility. That means you just, instead of saying username and password, you would see if this printer belongs to HP, if this is HP printer, or if this is a brother printer, brother company printer, allow it. So if this is a printer, allow it to connect to the network. Okay, so all those contexts you can write using the, I mean, you can use asset enforcement, enforcing the access based on the asset visibility for those devices which do not have, this is do not have interactive login feature. And how ISE is going to achieve this? How is ISE is going to identify that this is the printer? Again, this feature set. In ISE, we have profiling. When you configure profiling, basically ISE sends different probes to the end devices to identify that device is what, whether that device is kind of laptop, desktop, printer, IoT device, or what. And based on its response, it create the a kind of a profile for that particular device. Yeah. So asset enforcement feature you can also use in Cisco ISE for authentication of those devices which do not support a kind of uh, interactive login. Right. Now moving to next. Now we will talk about device administration. And this is one of the most common use case of ISE. So I would let you know, you might have seen that when you just want to access switch, I would take example. I have a switch. This is my switch. And I just want to provide access to 4 users. We have Asad, one user who can do the administration on the switch. We have Javed. And then we have Ram. So we have these 3 users who just want to have admin access of the switch. Let's take example. I just want to provide read-only access to Asad, write access to Javed, and full admin access to Ram. To Okay, how we can achieve this? We have two options. We can use local login. What is local login? That means here we can create a user like username as a password something. That's a local user on the switch itself I can create. Or I can use AAA, local AAA as well. Local AAA as well I can use. But instead of using any of these options, what I'm going to use, I'm just going to create one database over here. Okay. Where I have a user, all three users are here. Okay. This is the database. So all three users would be in this database. And this is not only providing that thing, but there I can define that what they can access. So we can also define the boundary for each user, what they can access. They would have this much access, or they would have this much access, or full access they have. So that means what we are going to create, we are going to create AAA, basically AAA. We are going to create over here. We are going to create AAA authentication, authorization, and accounting. And for that, we are using TechAS. This TechAS services we are using. So using TechAS is supporting AAA, right? So we are using TechAS and we are using AAA. So what I would say that this switch, whenever anybody want to log in, it should use TechAS services. Okay. And where we would have this TechAS database, we would have that TechAS database in ISE. So on ISE, we can decide that which user is allowed to access this particular switch. Okay. And which particular user access can run what command, or label of access we can provide on the TechAS. TechAS further can be, I mean, this ISE further can be communicate to LDAP, where it can find the local user database. So what would happen if anybody want to log in into this particular switch? So he would provide username and password. You know, their token is going to be verified by this TechAS server, right? And once it would be verified, TechAS further would be connecting to LDAP, identity source. Once it would be verified, you know, user would be user would get authentication, but what all command he can run, that would be defined on the authorization. So there you can define as well that what all the command user can run. So on the ISE, you can set all those things. That means role-based network device administration, you can also control using ISE. So
Sir, the stack access server, now this is part of ISE, or we should have a separate tag access server,
mean,
because
you can have both of the things. You can configure TechAS services on the ISE itself, or
okay,
you can use a third-party TechAS software as well.
okay, and integrate that with ISE, yeah,
Yeah, it
okay,
is also possible.
okay.
But you know, TechAS and Radius you can also enable on the ISE, right?
So no
Uh,
need to go with a third party.
no, you don't need to go for third party. Why you would go there?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sir, this is the only use case for the TACAS here, sir.
I mean, TechAS and Radius can be used for different stuff, right? One of the use cases is a network, a role-based network device administration. There are different use cases as well. So as an example, it's a user is connecting to the Wi-Fi. So how user would be communicating to the wireless network controller and ISE, in between ISE. So on that case, it can use the radius protocol or TACAS protocol. Yeah. But
And
as
so,
of now, you just understand that we can
mm,
use ISE for the device administration, and where we can enforce for the network administrator for the role-based access.
it could even capture the commands that we are putting on the Cisco
Yeah,
router and switches,
yeah,
that this
definitely.
specific user has put this command on the specific time.
Correct.
So for the network administration, it's a very good tool.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have seen multiple use case of this, and we are using in the organization. So we have L1 user, L2 user, and L3 user. That means administrator. So what we are doing in our organization, L1 user has a read-only access. They have only read-only access, and some of them, some of the things they can do. For example, they can take the backup. Okay, all those steps we can allow for L1 user. L2 user has a write access, but limited command. They cannot run erase config command. All those steps they cannot do. And L3 user, we have a full access. They can run all command. So whenever any new joiner is coming in our organization, whether that is L3 or what, first of all, we provide them only L1 level access. They can see read only. First 5 to 10 days, we allow them to see all the configuration. When they are comfortable, then we can move them to this respective, group. So how we are controlling? We are controlling from ISE only. In the ISE, we used to add that user. Okay, so we will see that how you can do the device administration. We will see that live example there. But as
Sir,
of now, yeah,
all these policies that we are applying, so they are being done from GUI based graphical user interface, yeah,
yeah,
not from the CLI based, yeah.
yeah. We are doing a GUI based only. I haven't
Okay,
tried using CLI so far on the ISE.
okay.
Yeah. API and other stuff we haven't tried so far on the ISE. I mean, I have only GUI experience so far. And on the troubleshooting itself, we are using CLI, but for user addition, profile creation, we are using GI only. So that's the device administration, that you can provide the role-based access for on any device for the administrator. Any device means on the firewall you can do same thing. On the switches you can do same thing. On the load balancer you can do same thing. So if you have network devices, okay, like firewall, switches, router, and this one, SD-WAN devices, SD-WAN controller, ACI controller, there you can use device-based administration. Okay.
Sir, may I know why SD-WAN?
Sorry, your
What is the
S
use case? SD-WAN and ICE. Can you elaborate on this?
do you know SDN, software
SD
defined?
is, yeah, the SDN is the umbrella that comes. SD-WAN is used for the WAN purposes, and ACI is used for the data center. SD access is used for the LAN purpose. So that's how for service provider they're using segment, something like. So this is how things are going.
Yeah. So basically, like in LAN, you have a, earlier before the SDN or SD-WAN or ACI, what we had a traditional kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
box to box configuration.
box to box configuration. Now you have centralized controller using which you can push the policy, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if I talk about organization WAN traffic. So what is the basically WAN traffic?
WAN traffic, like
WAN traffic, yeah.
connecting with the ISP MPLS providers. So those are all WAN traffic.
Yeah, those are all the WAN traffic. Yeah, you're right. So usually in organization, what happen? Basically, there is a data center, and then there are branches. Okay, branches.
Yeah.
There could be HQ, headquarter. So what the basic requirement that all the branches, whatever the branches you have, headquarter, regional offices, or you have RO, they should be connected to the data center. And how they are connecting? All they are connecting using WAN link. A kind of WAN connectivity would be there, right? All they are connecting using WAN link. To connect to this WAN link, how you are managing all these WAN link? Okay, so I would take a traditional example. On the branch office, you would have a kind of firewall through which you would be managing firewall or router. Headquarter, you have firewall router. In data center, firewall and router. Here you have firewall router, which would be providing all these connectivity. So here it is providing the security. Let's say if branch user want to access internet, they cannot directly access internet. They would go over the internet via data center. So data center further would be connected to the internet. If they just want to access google.com, they cannot directly browse the google.com. They would be connecting using MPLS link, and then they can go using data center internet. Why? Because you don't have that much security as you have on data center. On data center, you have proxy, you have antivirus checks, all those steps you have, network antivirus checks, etc. What the problem is here, let's say if this link goes down, this link goes down, this link goes down. If you are running on a single link, what would happen? Your connectivity from branch to data center to the internet is going to be down. So what you would use? You would use individual. You are going to check all these steps. You are going to log in here first, then log in here, and you are going to check where is the problem. And post checking all these steps, you would find that problem is on ISP side. And now you want to change your ISP. So you are going to manually enable the secondary link, etc. Or maybe you have created some kind of a script to enable the secondary link. But to manage your your WAN traffic, you don't have any centralized console where you could manage all these steps. To overcome this solution, SD-WAN came into the picture. Now you would have centralized controller. Maybe it would be here on the data center, or maybe it would be provided by the SD-WAN provider itself. That there would be centralized controller. There you are going to log in, and there you could see all the link. These link, because here you are going to install one of their
VH.
Yeah, I mean any device of there, right? So I would take example, Meraki we are using as a SD-WAN. Cisco Meraki we are using in our organization as a SD-WAN. So what we are going to do over here, I mean, this is also used for SD-WAN, and this is also used for the wireless controller. So what we are going to do, they have provided one portal, and on that portal, whatever the device is installed in my network, I could see, and I could see that what are the link are connected to those devices, and we can switch the link by single click only. So now if we just want to manage our, WAN traffic, so we can manage from the single place, from single controller, and it is providing a lot of stuff. It is not only providing, management ease, but it is also providing, kind of load balancing. For example, let's say I have installed two ISP link over here, and I just want to direct 40% traffic here from this link, and 50% traffic I just want to route from this link. So I could do the load balancing as well. So let's say I have MPLS. On MPLS, I just want to do one thing. On MPLS, I just want to send most of the traffic, and broadband I have put as a secondary. I can also do that. So how we are going to manage all these stuff? Using a single controller. So now you can manage your WAN traffic using a software defined network. For that, we have to install, the devices on here and here as well. So
Yeah,
what
it's clear. So how ISE is integrated with SD-WAN?
ICE is integrated, that like you have a kind of wireless controller over here, right? And user want to connect through the wireless controller from here. And how this wireless controller is going to authenticate that this user should be able to connect to the your which SSID. So when user is putting username and password using this network, your wireless controller using WAN network, sending that credential or token to the ICE, which would be installed into the data center, and then ICE is going to authenticate this user that this user can connect. So I
Yeah.
would take simple example over here. Let's say uh, there is a company, XYZ is a company, and it has a branch over here. Let's say its branch is in, I would take example, let's say in Mumbai. And it's a data center somewhere in, it has a data center. So somewhere here in Hyderabad. And, we have a headquarter as well for that company, let's say, and that headquarter is in Bangalore. So we have a company which has a three location. One is the data center, one is the headquarter, one is a branch. So this is a branch. Now, in this company, we have installed what? We have installed wireless so that user can connect using a wireless. So all these are connected to the data center. Somewhere it is using MPLS. And it is kind of WAN. In data center itself, you have Cisco ISE. Here you have installed Cisco ISE. So here you have ISE, which use for all those authentication. In the Mumbai, you have, kind of on the Mumbai branch, you have a kind of SSID, or you can say access point, which is XY CorpNet. This is the SSID. And the same SSID is being advertised in the HQ itself, headquarter itself. So here you have a same SSID that is being advertised using the same name. That is XYZ CorpNet. So when let's say, if this user in a Bangalore branch, I mean Bangalore headquarter, If this user is here, he's trying to access the resources. So what he used to do, he used to connect to XYZ coordinate. And when he used to connect to XYZ coordinate, before connecting, he has to put username and password. When he's provide username and password, that this access point send that to wireless controller, and then wireless controller redirect that to ISE. And ISE check internal database, and based on that, it provide access to this user. What if from here the same user is moving to Mumbai for some reason, and when he moved to Mumbai and he's trying to connect to same SSID, whether he would be able to connect or not? Yeah, he would be able to connect because here it is using the same mechanism. User is putting his credential, and against that credential, this access point sending to the wireless controller somewhere here itself. And then wireless controller is connecting internally to the ISE and providing all the information about the credential, and this user would be able to access network seamlessly. So I mean to say that whenever any AP access point is sending the authentication traffic that it has received from the user, authentication data, then your ISE can look that this particular token is coming over the WAN and it need to be authenticated. Yeah. So kind of, device over here, finally it is going to do device authentication using a TechAS. So Cisco ISE in this way can be used into the SD-WAN itself.
Okay, clear, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we have talked about device administration, and now I'm moving to next slide. Okay, we have a guest and secure Wi-Fi. So this is another use case that if you want to provide, guest access, so we can provide guest access as well. I would take example. I don't know if you have seen or not, but if you go in any organization, a single access point would be advertising all three different SSID. So maybe this is the access point, and it would be advertising three different SSID. One SSID is, I would take again example, XYZ guest net. This is one SSID. One API can advertise many SSID, right? Other is XYZ Corp net. And maybe another SSID is XYZ Corp user. So we have three different SSID is being advertised over here by this API. And now I'm just talking about the access to my network. This AP access point is connected to a WLC, you can take example, wireless LAN controller. And further, it is connected to a switch. And from here, it would be, we have a servers over here, which these users want to access. And further, it is connected to a firewall. And firewall is further connecting this to internet. Now, we have a user, I would say how we have done. For example, if user is connecting to corporate network, he would be able to access all these servers. If user is connecting to just a guest network, he won't have a server access, but he can access, internet, etc. And if user is connecting to as a corp user, corp admin user, they can connect to server network, they can connect to management network, they can connect to internet. They have the full access. So let's say there is a user coming, and this user is Bob. Bob is a guest user as of now. So he is putting his username and password. He has seen that there is a guest SSID is being advertised. And when the guest SSID is being advertised, he is putting his username and password. It is going on AP. Okay. It is going to authenticate. Once user is authenticated, then how it is going to decide that what user can access? If you don't have a Cisco ISE, right? He can access everything. He can access all those things. But if you have a Cisco ISE over here, in the Cisco ISE, it would be able to identify more stuff. It is not able, only it is going to look the username password, but it is also looking that he is coming from the which SSID. And based on the SSID, it is going to put the user into that particular VLAN or group where he would have a limited access or access as a guest he would have. So if you are using Cisco ISE, you can control guest and secure Wi-Fi access. Okay. A guest access, how you can manage? A guest access you can manage in a two-way. One is the sponsored and other is a self-service. So let's say in your company, there is a guest is visiting and they just want to use internet at that time. So there are two options. One thing, you pre-inform your IT department who could create username password for this user on the ISE. When user is putting the same username password, he would be able to, access the network. I mean, access the internet. That is one thing. Or you can provide, self-service to the user. Like whenever user is trying to connect, before connecting, user get captive portal. Okay, like in airport, if you want to use internet, you would be redirected to one of the page. There you can provide all the user, all the information. Based on that, for 15 or 60 minutes or for 1 hour, 2 hour, temporary access can be provided. So that is a self-services. Or the third is a sponsored. So what is the meaning of sponsored? Let's say I have a scheduled interview for some of the users. For some of the candidate. I know that this candidate is coming. Okay. So before they coming, they just want to access company portal from our network. So what I would do, from the sponsored portal itself, I would create username password for this user. And I would provide them that this is the credential. You can use this credential to access the internet. Okay. Similarly, let's say there is not a interview candidate, but some marketing people is trying to visit our company and they just want to access internet. And they have the requirement to access internet. And we just want to allow them to access the internet via our corporate network using guest Wi-Fi. So on that cases as well, I would create their credential on the Cisco ISE, because on the Cisco ISE can provide the sponsor page for different department. So there they can log in, they can create the username password, and that username password they can provide to their client so that the client can access the internet. So this is one of the way using which we can control, guest and secure Wi-Fi access. Any question on this?
No question.
No
Yeah.
question.
Good, good. Now moving to next, and we are going to talk about BYOD. What is the meaning of BYOD? BYOD stands for bring your own device. Which is BYOD. Usually you would see in most of the company, they don't allow any laptop or desktop to bring in the office. Your personal stuff, they won't allow to bring into the office. I would take one genuine example. There is a company in India which is known as a Wipro. Might be you have heard or not. But this is one of the giant company in India. And in this company, there was one of the employee, one of my friend, he joined that company, Wipro in Bangalore. So he joined Wipro Bangalore, and what he did, the company hasn't allotted any corporate laptop. So we have on company, we have a corporate laptop. When I say corporate laptop, this means what? This is a company provided laptop. Provided laptop. So one of my friend joined Wipro Bangalore, and he hasn't received a company provided laptop. What usually company does, basically they would install the operating system on their laptop. They would install required software, and they would require a policy. They would install the policy as well, that what he can access, what he cannot access, what he can install, what he cannot install. So all these corporate laptop or the company controlled. These are the company controlled laptop. These are the company controlled laptop. So basically, one of my friend joined this Wipro company in Bangalore, and this company hasn't allotted him corporate laptop. So he came with personal laptop. Okay. So in the campus itself, there was a security guard who checks laptop, ID, etc. And he found that the user uh, who joined this company or candidate who joined this company, he is with his personal laptop. And in these type of company, because they are a third party service provider company, so on these type of company, they don't allow anybody to bring their personal laptop. So this personal laptop is also called BYOD. So some of the company do not allow, but some of the company allow. What are the consequences if you are using a personal laptop into the corporate network? There are a lot of chances. See, the company control laptop having all those things, their operating system would be, genuine. Their required software would be licensed. Policies would be updated. Antivirus would be updated. All those steps to secure the, assets. They install all the requirement software or all the requirement, uh, antivirus, etc. But if you use personal laptop, on personal laptop, you may not be using all these stuff. Okay, your laptop may be infected, and if you put into the corporate network, there are chances for the virus infection on the network. That's why company do not allow personal laptop. So this, security guard of Wipro company, he denied you cannot enter into the organization premises. You have to submit your laptop there only on the gate, then you can go. So he has submitted his personal laptop on the gate, and after that he went within the company. This is, true story of one of my friend. So I'm talking about BYOD, where some of the company allow this personal laptop. So some of the companies saying it doesn't matter. We would allow you to connect to our network. So you can bring your own devices, BYOD, bring your personal devices and do connect to our network and then start working. So what that does basically, so let's say you have a laptop, personal laptop, this company is allowing that. You bring that laptop into their company and you have connected to corporate network, corporate. And once you connected to corporate, you just want to work, they would provide, kind of virtual system that is going to open on your laptop. There you can do all tasks. And when you disconnect them, task is going to save somewhere in the remote server. So this is company remote server. Using personal laptop, you can access, you can connect to the corporate network. And from here, you can take the terminal access, and then you can work there. You can work on the terminal or remote desktop. And whatever your task you are doing, it is not saving on your local computer. Even from that terminal, you cannot copy on your personal laptop. Or from personal laptop, you cannot upload anything on that terminal. So they would provide you terminal access. There you can work and then you can disconnect. And when you disconnect, it is going to save into the remote server. So in that case, company do not need to issue the laptop to the end user. You can use your personal laptop. You can work on the corporate network. But the problem is here, again, same thing. When you are connecting your personal laptop to the corporate network, what are the likely chances that this corporate network can be victim of viruses? Maybe your personal laptop infected. And if you are using that infected laptop, then, maybe corporate network get compromised. So how company is overcoming with these kind of issue? So any companies is overcoming on these kind of issue by checking the posture. So it is using BYOD use case plus compliance. Those two case being used to connect any BYOD device, which is bring your own device, personal device, to the corporate network. So before connecting to the network, again, you can check the compliance over here, where you can check on the user machine, firewall is on. Whatever you do corporate checks for your corporate device, same checks you can do for this BYOD as well. Firewall is on, Windows is XYZ version, Windows is updated or not, antivirus is updated or not, antivirus is running or not. All those steps you can check on this BYOD device. If this BYOD device does not meet the requirement, this would not be allowed to be connected to the corporate network. Yeah. So using this Cisco ISE, you can manage BYOD devices as well. Okay. So that is
Yeah.
another use case. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Clear.
Yeah. Now moving to next one, and we are going to talk about segmentation. Yeah, probably this would be answer of your, I think probably earlier you have asked the question that let's say user do not have a user do not meet the compliance, then he would be able to access the network limited or
Mm-hmm.
full, all those things. So yes, you can do the segmentation. In the segmentation use cases, user is allowed to connect to the network, but with its limit. So you can do the segmentation in a different way. So as an example, how, why we are doing a segmentation. So I would take an example. Let's say I have a different department user. Uh, okay. So we have accounting department user. And we have one of the user is from IT department. So we have two department user. And here we have a switch from which we have different resources connected. We have routers, we have firewalls, and then we have internet. So what we just want, that accounting user would be having a limited access. They should be only able to access server. And when IT department user would be there, he would be able to access anything. Okay. So the access we can control in a different way, which is known as a segmentation or segregation. Segregation we can do different way. We can define the authorization policy, that what they can access for all those user who is connecting to network, and where we can put all those things on the ISE itself. On Cisco ISE itself, we can put all those things. Like when first time user is connecting, user is putting the username and password of account department user, and he would be able to access, once it is authenticated, we might align VLAN 10 for them, that they would become the part of VLAN 10. Initially, this user would not be part of any VLAN. But as soon as he is connecting to the network, and based on the username password, we can assign them to VLAN 10. And VLAN 20, we can define that this is for IT. So we can do all the things. We can do based on the authorization policy. We can define the dynamic VLAN allocation for the one user, or we can create dynamic ACL which can control user access, that what he can access and what he cannot access. And we have one more thing which is known as a security group tag. So basically this is the new feature in Cisco ISE, that you can define a tag for particular user, and based on the tag, the required VLAN policy, dynamic VLAN allocation, all those things is going to apply for that user. So that means for the user, you can do the segregation based on the different way. And segregation means what? You can define that which type user can access what. That is
Sir,
the segmentation. Yeah.
can we do end-to-end segmentation? For example, we have sales department in one side of the network, and sales department in another side of the network, A, B. For example, side A and side B, we have two sales team, yeah? So
Yeah.
can we do, I mean, end-to-end segmentation between sales department, that only sales department can communicate with the sales, so it should not communicate with other departments such as HR or marketing, like we are
On
doing.
on ISE level, you cannot do these things, but you have to take the network device functionality as well. So you
Okay.
can maybe you can put two different VLAN for two different department, right?
Yeah.
On ICE level, you can just control that where user going to be allocated.
Okay, like in MPLS, we can do this, like creating different RDs,
Yeah,
and with the help of RDs, the routing tables get, within the same device, we can have multiple routing tables.
yeah,
So we can do end-to-end segmentation, and
yeah. Based on the RD, you can do that.
yeah, but so the same thing could not happen with the eyes, yeah.
On ICE is just
Um,
controlling your authentication and authorization.
Authentication. Okay,
Yeah, authentication and
and the
authorization. So
same
there
thing,
you
and
can
this.
control what you can control, that user would become part of which access list, and for which
Mhm.
access list what should be allowed. You can
Okay,
define all those things.
and
So
the same
those
thing,
rules you can create.
yeah, and the same segmentation can be done with the SD-WAN as well. Like
Yeah, yeah,
uh, SD-WAN, creates different VPN
yeah,
groups.
yeah,
So that's how. Okay, gets
yeah,
clear for me.
yeah. Another example I'm taking, let's say in your organization, you might have seen that, maybe you might have seen in some organization, there is a dynamic seating, which is known as a flexi seating, flexi seat policy, something like that. So what is meaning of flexi seat? Earlier, what used to happen in the organization, let's say uh, this is one of the organization, and it has floor number 1, floor number 2, floor number 3. So earlier, what used to happen, if there are you know user in this organization, some user is preferring that I just want to have Windows seat, I just want to have XYZ seat, like that. But nowadays, what organization is doing? Organization is coming with the flexi seating policy, that none of the seat permanently assigned to anybody. Okay, until there are any exception. So that means anybody can come, and whatever there would be empty seat, they can take that seat.
First in, first out.
Yeah,
That's the.
yeah. First come
Uh,
and first get,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. So what is happening over here? I mean, let's say there is a user who is you can take Bob is the user who belongs to IT department. Okay. And instead of sitting on a IT floor, he might went on the HR floor or somewhere else, right? Or you know. So what would happen? This user on this floor, and there is a Alex user is on sitting on this particular floor, but they both are belongs to IT department. So once they are putting the username and password, dynamically, dynamically they are going to allocate it into the IT department VLAN. It doesn't matter that where they are sit. Maybe their IP is 192.168.2.10 and his IP is 192.168.2.1.10. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay.
Both
Yeah.
are going to dynamically assign to a particular department based on their username and password, so that you can
So
control using ISE.
okay,
Yeah.
clear.
Sir, here the network will change here, VLAN will change, or they will have
There
access
will
to.
VLAN tagging or security group tagging or VLAN is automatically going to be changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amar, still I have some
Yeah.
confusion on the dynamic VLAN.
Yeah.
So in this case, whoever are connecting the laptop and the access port, the access port should be nothing to be configured, right? Should be free, right?
Yeah.
When coming to some specific VLAN allocations. Right?
Yeah. Basically, ISE would have authentication to make the changes on the switches side.
Okay, right, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So based on the authentication, it is going to change the dynamic VLAN allocation.
Sir,
Okay,
now the switch configuration should be as what should it? There should we should define the tag there, it should be access port or it should be ANTAC, or what kind will be the port there?
It would
For
be
the
access port by default. It would be access port, but it would be controlled by the ISE. So ISE has a kind of authentication which can use COP, which is change COA, sorry, COA, change of authority. You are going to assign ISE as a change of authority for that particular switch. So once ISE is going to identify that this switch is this user is connecting to XYZ port. So based on that, it would be going to change the dynamic VLAN for that particular port itself.
Even
So
if it's
after the user is
yes, go ahead, sir.
after the user disconnected from the network, that port will be again rolled back to default, or it is different?
Yeah, it is going to roll back to default.
Roll-
Yeah. Once it is disconnected, immediately it is going to roll back to default.
Sir, if even the user is coming from a native VLAN, so I mean, the same policies will be applied to them as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Sir, if the size get down and this one, so what will be the end user? They will be the network for those.
User need to reconnect again if there is any kind of disconnectivity.
Yeah, if the ISS gets down or this is disabled, okay. So
Yeah.
how the communication will be? So the user will be able to communicate with the server, or they will access the internet, or no?
No, until unless he is authenticated, he can access the server. But once his token expired, then he need to re-authenticate himself.
Okay, you mean the user they are accessing their login with the IS, they will be able, the new user will be not able to access. Yes.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yeah. I would let you know simple example but that is not related to a dynamic VLAN, but hopefully you would be able to understand. So a
sorry,
simple.
Amara.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
Amara,
ahead.
sorry to say, I have to go out. I am going to disconnect only from the.
No
I
problem.
will check in
No
the
problem.
record.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so let me just take a simple example over here. What is the simple example? I mean, real-time example I have seen. We had a wireless controller in, there was AP in branch offices in somewhere in North America. And we have a data center somewhere in US itself. So what was happening basically, we were getting the complaint from the user. Let's say today's user AP access is working fine, but when they come next day in morning, they are not able to access the AP. They are not able to connect to the network. So this was the kind of issue user were reporting. So what was happening over here, when user was putting their username and password, okay, once putting the username password, when user is being authenticated via internet to the data center ISE, if this ISP connectivity was down, user was not able to do that. So we have seen that user is not able to connect to office network because there is some issue on the ISP side, and just because they can't reach to ISE. And this was happening to those branch office a lot. So what we did basically, we had provided 8 days lease for the authentication token. Like if this user is authenticated today, its authentication is valid for the 8 days. So this AP would not ask next 8 days to authenticate this user, or it would sub the authentication from his cache only. So in that case, what you can see, you can increase the authentication lease. So whatever the token would be stored here, okay, on user AP, that is not going to expire up to 8 days. So if this token is not expired, okay, and user is coming, if it is providing username and password, it is looking to the token and then sending that token. Based on that token, it is going to allow to the user. So if you face this kind of situation, you can increase the token basically. Else user would face this kind of disconnectivity issue. Yeah, so that is one of the example. I would let you know that how you are going to configure all these stuff. Don't worry, but right now I'm just talking.
Yeah, once we have a practical session, then things will be much clearer.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
Now I
we
would
will.
talk about next two feature, which is threat containment and integration.
Sir, if you could conclude this two-part in 15 minutes because of our prayer time.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I would conclude in 2 minutes.
okay,
I mean, mostly 5 minutes.
okay.
So basically, Cisco ISE has a threat containment where it is going to share real-time threat intelligence to automate the threat responses. So what is meaning of real-time threat intelligence? And you can integrate that threat intelligence with the third-party technology as well. So I would take example over here. Let's say here we have a user. This is the user who is connecting to the network. Further, we have a firewall. And it is connected to internet. Here we have a Cisco ISE, which is allowing this user to connect the network because at that time it has measure all the compliance. So using this integration feature, what you can do, you can integrate firewall and ISE so that they can exchange the information regarding the threat. Okay, so you can integrate that. Let's say firewall has detected that this user got a virus or this is virus infected user. So immediately this firewall is going to inform to the ISE using threat containment feature, which is known as a real-time threat intelligence. It is going to inform this ISE that this user is virus infected, and then ISE is going to send the COA request to the switch that please block this interface. Please shut down this interface from where user is connecting. Yeah. So what
Yes.
is the threat containment? Basically, it is going to real time feed the intelligence, and based on that intelligence, it is going to take the decision whether user need to be allowed to the network or not. And what is the integration? You can integrate any third party technology to fetch those threat intelligence. Yeah. So these are the another use cases you can use for threat containment and integration.
That is like sandboxing as well. Like
Sandboxing
yeah,
is a little difference, but you can see that this is kind of security intelligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is kind of feature we have. So no worry. Today we have seen a basic use cases of Cisco ISE. Tomorrow we will see more features, and probably we will try to install the Cisco ISE for first time.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's
Thank you.
stop here and see you tomorrow.
Yeah.